Welcome back, friends. Today we step into a quiet mountain village where the morning air still tastes like dew and wood smoke. We're gathering wild green onions, the kind that only grow here, tucked between stones warmed by the sun and soil that remembers every season. If you enjoy these little pieces of mountain life, friends, make sure to subscribe. There's so much more I want to share with you. Right now, my wife is out there on the hillside, gathering wild green onions the same way she used to as a kid, with that small, half-hidden smile she gets when something feels familiar. She always says the mountains smell different in spring, like they're finally stretching after a long sleep. These onions have been part of mountain life forever, but for people here, they were memories. My wife told me once her grandma used to say "Go bring me the first green onions of the year, they taste like good luck." And little her would run barefoot up the hill, returning with 3 tiny crooked leaves, proud like she brought home treasure. There's also a practical side to this tradition. In the past, villagers believed that eating the first green onion sauce made your body strong for the year ahead. They used it to fight off colds, to restore energy after long winters, even to treat small wounds. In the old days, these onions literally saved families. During the war years, when food was scarce, the children of the village would run into the hills, searching for these onions. They'd return with their little pockets full, proud as hunters. While she's out there picking green onions, I've already gathered firewood for our fire. Now I'm collecting flowers for her, whatever bright colors the meadow gives me. She always teases me for choosing the most random ones, but somehow she still puts them in water like they belong in a gallery. Let's take a little break and enjoy some tea. The kind that slows the whole moment down and lets the mountains breathe with us. Tell me, how do you like your tea? Strong and earthy or soft and sweet? We're finally back, and now my wife is preparing the green onion sauce, the kind that feels both ancient and brand new every time she makes it. The board fills with fresh onion greens, lemon zest, soft cheese, and a handful of nuts. It's simple, but somehow it feels like watching a little ceremony unfold. This sauce goes way back. Mountain families used it as a way to stretch fresh ingredients into something that fed everyone: parents, kids, neighbors, whoever walked in during dinner time. My wife says that in her grandma's house, this sauce wasn't just food. She always tells me that her grandmother prepared this sauce for celebrations, especially spring weddings. Young couples would taste it together so their marriage would be sharp, fresh, and full of life. I don't know if it works, but the idea always makes her smile. Interestingly, similar sauces appear all over the world. In Georgia, there's a bright, herb-heavy paste with nuts that tastes like a cousin to this one. In Italy, mountain villagers make a green onion pesto in early spring. Even in Korea, there's a traditional onion dipping sauce served with grilled meat. Different lands, same instinct. Fresh greens mean hope. Even European royal families had their version. In old cookbooks from the 1600s, green onion sauces were served to queens after winter because people believed they revitalized the spirit and brought back appetite. It's funny to imagine kings eating something so humble, made from plants growing between rocks. My wife dices everything quickly, but not carelessly. She still chops the onions the way her grandma taught her, rocking the knife gently, so the flavor doesn't escape. I don't know if that's science or superstition, but it looks beautiful. In some parts of the mountains, families still make this sauce for travelers. It's an old tradition, offer something green and fresh to anyone who's been walking for days. People believed the mountains could be harsh, but the table should never be. While she's busy with the sauce, I'm over here shaping myself an axe. Nothing fancy, just wood, steel, and a bit of stubbornness. Funny how holding a tool like this makes you feel instantly connected to something older than you. The very first axes humans ever made were just sharpened stones tied to sticks with animal tendons. Archaeologists say some of them are older than written language itself. Imagine, people used these things before they even had words for tool. Ancient warriors treated axes like symbols of power. Vikings carved stories into their axe heads, believing the metal remembered battles. Some chieftains were even buried with their axes so they could cut their way into the next world. In medieval Europe, the axe was the tool of everyone: woodcutters, soldiers, blacksmiths, even kings' guards. It was the one object that could build a home or defend one. No wonder people respected it almost like a living thing. One of the coolest facts? Some Native American tribes believed an axe should never be made in anger. They said bad emotions settle into the handle, making the tool dangerous. Let's get back to our sauce. Mountain women believed nuts made the sauce stronger, good for men working in the forest and good for kids who needed energy after winter. Some families used walnuts, others pine nuts. My wife uses whatever looks best at the market, usually too many. Lemon zest wasn't always part of the recipe. Her great-grandfather brought that idea from the coast after a long trade trip. He claimed the citrus wakes the onions up. People laughed at him at first, but by the next spring the whole village was zesting lemons like it was some kind of culinary revolution. In other countries, this humble sauce became a symbol of spring festivals. In parts of Japan, green onion dishes are served to invite good winds. In Greece, villagers once gifted jars of onion and nut paste to newlyweds to bless their home with fertility. Food is culture disguised as flavors. In some royal courts, this sauce was considered a spring medicine. Doctors would prescribe it to nobles who spent too long indoors during winter. They believed the onions woke the blood. If you love discovering little stories like this, make sure to subscribe. There's so much more hidden history and family secrets to share. Cheese came later, borrowed from shepherds who spent months high in the mountains. They used whatever cheese survived the journey, salty, crumbly, aged just enough to break with your fingers. Mixing it with green onions was their way of celebrating the season's first fresh greens. Well, now all that's left is to wait for the spices to bloom and the sauce is ready. She's carefully pouring the sauce into jars, slow and steady, making sure none spills. I love how she treats this simple step like it's the grand finale of a concert. Every jar lined up like little treasures waiting to be opened. Here's a little hack she swears by. Fill the jars while the sauce is still warm, then seal tightly. It keeps the flavor fresh for weeks and makes sure every spoonful tastes just like the first one. I went out with my spade to tend our trees. First step, turning the soil around their roots. It's amazing how much care a tree asks for. Every scoop of earth loosens it, lets air in, and feels like whispering a little thank you to nature. Digging around trees isn't just about soil. Ancient gardeners knew that the first loosening of the ground in spring wakes the tree from its winter sleep. In Japan and Europe, people performed this ritual for centuries, believing it strengthened roots and brought better harvests. Well, friends, my wife is now preparing our next treat, fried onion flatbreads. While she's at it, check out our online shop where you can find everything for cooking, from knives to aprons. But let's get back to these incredible flatbreads. Simple ingredients, endless stories. Fried onion flatbreads have been around for centuries. In mountain villages, families made them as a hearty meal after long days in the fields. Just flour, water, onions and oil, but the flavor was always unforgettable, filling, comforting, and shared with anyone who dropped by. I love that in her childhood, these were the treats of the week. She remembers sneaking behind the kitchen counter to taste onions sizzling in the pan, getting caught with onion-stained fingers and laughing at herself. That memory alone makes this dish feel like magic. Historically, onions were a sign of abundance. Villagers would fry them in flatbreads to celebrate harvests or family milestones. Even though the ingredients were humble, the act of sharing these breads turned every meal into a small festival. In other countries, similar dishes appear everywhere. In India, onion parathas have been eaten for centuries. In the Middle East, flatbreads with onions and spices were a staple for travelers. The idea is universal: crisp bread, caramelized onions, and a little oil see us happiness. Even European royals had their version. There are records from the 1700s of onion-stuffed flatbread served at French and British courts. They were simple, yes, but considered rustic luxury, a taste of the countryside brought to the palace table. If you're enjoying these little kitchen stories and behind-the-scenes moments, don't forget to follow us on Instagram. We share all the recipes, tips, and a bit of our everyday mountain life there. You won't want to miss it. In some families, these breads were used for celebrations, birthdays, weddings, or just a successful harvest. Frying onions in flatbreads symbolized sharing good fortune with everyone at the table. Her family kept that tradition alive without realizing its long history. I remember once as a kid sneaking a flatbread while my mother wasn't looking. One bite, and I felt like I'd stolen a piece of magic. Crispy edges, sweet onions, a little salt. That memory is why every time my wife makes them, I get that same little thrill. In some Asian countries, fried onion breads were considered energy food for soldiers. A piece in the morning, and they could march for hours. Makes sense. Flour for strength, onions for flavor, and oil for stamina. The royal connection is fascinating. Records in Ottoman archives mention flatbreads with spiced onions served to sultans. They weren't daily fare, but a delicacy. Simple ingredients elevated by careful preparation and presentation. Here's a little trick. Her grandmother always let the bread rest a minute after frying, so the onions absorbed back some oil and sweetness. It's these tiny details that turn a humble snack into something unforgettable. Even travelers loved these breads. Merchants crossing mountains would carry onions and dough to cook quick meals. There's something universally comforting about bread filled with caramelized onions, no matter where you are. These flatbreads aren't just tasty, they're nourishing too. Onions bring antioxidants, a little oil carries the flavors, and the bread gives you energy. One bite and it's both comfort and fuel for the day. If you want them extra crispy, let them rest a minute after frying on a cooling rack or plate. The steam escapes and the texture stays perfect, soft inside, golden and crisp outside. Did you know that fried onion flatbreads actually appeared in some royal kitchens centuries ago? In 17th century England, queens requested them as a rustic delight to balance the richness of meat-heavy banquets. It's funny to think that something so simple reached the palace table. In France, there are records of kings enjoying flatbreads with caramelized onions during informal gatherings in the countryside. They weren't served in grand halls but in private kitchens, shared quietly with close advisors. What's amazing is that despite their royal exposure, the recipe stayed humble. No extravagant ingredients, just skill and patience. It shows how sometimes the simplest flavors become the most cherished, even among rulers. Meanwhile, I've lightly dried some green onions. They make the most amazing little spice. Just a pinch adds that fresh, sharp flavor that wakes up any dish. Finally, we've sat down at the table. The aroma of the green onion sauce and fried flatbreads fills the air, and there's a quiet satisfaction in sharing this meal together. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed our mountain kitchen adventures and little food stories, don't forget to subscribe. There's so much more coming.